Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 12 of TLDR Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Football season is about to start on Thursday. I'm so excited if you couldn't tell. So to anyone who wants to hang out with me on Thursdays, Mondays, Sundays for the next couple of weeks, I'm busy. Sorry. This also means that there are 4 major sports that are all going on at the same time, which is really, really cool, really exciting.
Crazy.
A lot of sports all day long. We have a ton of great topics today. Ranging from drinking games to the drama-filled NBA playoffs. But first, let's check in with the guys and see how they're doing. I know a couple of you guys went on trips this weekend, so let's hear about it. Alex, how you doing, man?
Good, long weekend, got back to work today. It was only 115 degrees here all weekend, so just drank and sweat my balls off.
Sounds like so much fun. Tyler, how was date night? How was San Diego, man?
Yeah, date night was good. Girlfriend and I went to Coronado Island, which you guys aren't familiar. There's a little island like right across from downtown San Diego. You can take a bridge over there. It's a small little island full of great restaurants and stuff. Got a great view of San Diego. And went to a brewery there, had a good time. However, the night was a little weird because we ordered a growler to go. And when we got back, I placed it on the kitchen counter. And like 5 minutes later, I just heard this loud crash and a bang, and the beer just spilled everywhere. Like the bottom of the growler, just like broke, and it just completely spilled beer all over the carpet, all over the kitchen counter. It was a big old mess. So that was weird, and I'm still waiting to hear back if I'm gonna get a refill or not with that. So stay tuned on that one. Yeah, that was super weird.
Sounded like a rookie just filled it up for you.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I've never seen that. Alex, do you have any ideas of how that could possibly happen?
I mean, it must be like the beer was too cold and it cooled the glass down, and then when you put the glass down and if the counter was too hot, the bottom of the glass just shattered. Is most likely what happened. Yeah.
Physics. Tradon says.
Really, it means the place you went to sucks balls because they don't keep their beer at the right temperature.
Clearly not.
Is what it comes down to.
Clearly not.
They believe in science.
Beer, though.
Yeah.
Tradon, you went to NorCal this weekend, man. You played some golf and you finally got to see your girl after a long time.
Yes.
How happy are you?
It was pretty great. She came home with us. Went up to Monterey to see her family. Both families were hanging out. Lots of golf, lots of watching golf, lots of watching hockey. We watched some basketball. It was just a chill weekend. We toured around Monterey, and it was a great, relaxing weekend. Glad to be back. Not really glad to be back, but glad to be back with you guys.
Appreciate it. We're glad to have you back, man. And lastly, if you guys missed it, it was Eric's 38th birthday this last week. And you also went to Chico, too.
Right.
Oh, Chico, Eric.
It was my 28th birthday, but today I feel like I'm 45. The way that this weekend hit me like a bus. It was really fun. The only shitty thing is everywhere was closed. Madison Bear Garden was closed. Sierra Nevada was closed. The 2 main places that you want to go to are closed. Other than that, we had fun. Played a lot of Snapple, a lot of beer pong, did terrible in both games, and we're going to get into that soon here, which game I think is better than the other for many reasons. But, yeah, I got to redeem myself next time we play. Since our 5-game series, I've done pretty bad.
Looks like you need me as your teammate here. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we have the age-old debate of beer pong versus beer dive, and Eric is going to tell us all about it.
Yeah. They're on it too.
Do you like alcohol? Do you like beer? Do you like drinking games? If you answered yes to any of those questions, this segment is for you. Beer pong versus beer dive. Eric, take it away.
All right, guys, this is the debate that everyone has been waiting for. It has been called upon me to share my knowledge and also for you guys to share your knowledge. Let's start off with beer pong. Everyone knows about it. It was also called Beirut. It involves shooting 2 balls into 10 cups shaped in a triangle formation, believed to have been started at Dartmouth College in the 1950s. They originally played with paddles, and that's where they got the name beer pong, because it's like ping pong. Later on, Bucknell University, in the newspaper there, they introduced a game that they invented called throw pong, which is what we know as beer pong. It seems to me like it's a basketball-style drinking game, very common amongst basically any party ever, if you've been invited to one, hopefully, in your life. So right away, beer pong, I want to get into the advantages. Alex, tell me some advantages about beer pong.
I mean, the advantage of beer pong is if you don't want to be drinking out of gross, nasty fucking cups all night that have had God knows what go into them, you just fill them with water and you got your drink on the side. Or if you're gluten whatever and you don't want to drink beer, then you just play on the side. If you're fucked up, like whenever Tyler and I play and like I end up having to drink for him, then you like can have someone drink for you. There's plenty of advantages to beer pong. If you're really good at it, it can go much quicker, especially if there's a bunch of people around. You're trying to get everyone to play. So those are definitely some advantages.
Definitely. I agree with you. I wrote some other ones down. Setting-wise, you're playing inside. So I was just in Chico. It was 109 degrees. So we were inside in an air-conditioned house playing all day. So that was an advantage for sure. You can get drunk pretty fast. Some people, that's an advantage. And then you could play with water. Like you're saying, you fill the cups up with water. So then you don't have people sticking their dirty fingers in your cup. Or, they're touching the ball and they're throwing it into your cup. That's a virus written all over it. There's shot techniques in beer pong that could be an advantage. You can go this little underhand coil throw, which I've seen become really accurate. You can do little step backs if you want. Some people are just really creative with it. And there's rebuttals, which is always important because there's a lot of times you can come back, get into a game, and pull it off. Kind of like losing a 3-goal lead in hockey or something like that. But Tradon, tell me some disadvantages of beer pong.
Well, it's not really hard for me to point out the disadvantages because I'm really bad at it. So I'm playing for way too long. And anybody who's been my partner, I know James, Tyler, I'm pretty sure you have, and Eric, all can attest to this. I am not the greatest when it comes to beer pong. So the disadvantage is if you're not very good at throwing things into little holes, you're not going to have a good time. I never do. That said, it's a little too mellow for me. I'm very upbeat. I'm very in your face. I'm very hyper at times, and the game is just too mellow for me. That said, I mean, there's some times where it's nice to settle down, but that'd be my disadvantage. It's a little bit slower. It's not as active for someone that is as active as I am. Plus, it doesn't really play to my strong suit. That said, neither does beer die, but whatever.
Yeah. I agree with all your disadvantages. I'm similar to, like, that game can get really slow, and then that's where I just start playing bad, Another disadvantage, the whole elbows rule. Sometimes people get away with, having their elbow over the fucking table. And in my eyes, that's what you would call cheating, like if you were on the Houston Astros or something like that. But another disadvantage is you can only – actually, now that I think about it, you could play outside too. But, I was playing inside all weekend. But I guess you could play outside too, so that's not a disadvantage. Never mind.
Add the wind factor in. Got to play
the wind. Yeah. And then everyone changes their rules. Like I've been in different areas playing different beer pong games, and there's like this random rule I've never heard about before. And then people are like, "Oh, that's the rule we grew up with," type of bullshit. That's how I lost one of the games this weekend. And then I guess my last disadvantage is you can get drunk quickly, which could be an advantage too. And one other thing, like I mentioned earlier, everyone's touching the ball, and if they're throwing it in your drink and you're drinking it, that's a virus beer, maybe. Let's get into beer dive, the real, better, more important game. No bias here. So beer dive is a table-based drinking game involving 4 players. 2 are on each side, throwing a dice underhanded over a certain height. In other words, high as shit in the air. That's what you want to do. And it's either landing on the other half of the table and bouncing off, or you're trying to land it in your opponent's cup. There's different point scoring systems, but when you hit that side of the other table, your partner has to catch you, or your partner has to catch it. So you're going to need communication there. And the dice can only be caught with one hand before it hits the ground. 3 key distinct attributes to this game: offense, defense, and stamina. Offense, because you need to be consistent and make your shots. Defense, you need to keep your team alive and snag those hot tosses. Stamina, you need to be able to handle your alcohol. Don't let it diminish you and your offense and your defense. Tyler.
Okay.
James, I'm going to go to you first, though. What are some advantages you think of Snappa/beer die?
One of the biggest things, first and foremost, is how active it is. You're moving front, back, side, jumping up and down, getting to a squat, doing a burpee, doing what you got to do to get that die. And if you're like a functioning adult, member of society, you're trying to burn those calories as you put in those calories. So at the end of the day, you pretty much have a net of 0 if you play some beer die. In addition to that, it really helps your hand-eye coordination just because, a die is way smaller than a ping pong ball. So if you're if you're an athlete guy, girl, you want this game because it helps your hand-eye coordination, which is used in pretty much every single sport. It'll make you a better athlete. I promise, play beer die. Lastly, when you throw a die up in the air and it lands on the table, it's unpredictable. You don't know where it's going to go. And, that's just like life. Life is unpredictable, but you still got to figure it out. So not only is it burning calories, but it's also teaching you about life. So beer die is way better.
Yes, life.
Yeah, that was deep, dude. That was way deeper than I expected.
Hot take.
In other words,
a dice is smaller than a ping pong ball.
Life is valuable, guys, and so is beer die. Some advantages. I agree. Active. Nothing like being active. It's outside. I love being outside, except when it's raining or snowing or there's a bunch of ash in the air. Or when it's like 119 degrees, but it's still, fuck it. It's fun to be outside, being active, playing Snappa. Sinking someone's cup when it's not your own, like what Tyler does when he sinks his own partner's cups. But when you sink the opponent's cup, it's like one of the best feelings ever. It's like what James is saying. You throw it up high as shit in the air, and it's unexpected. And when it happens, it's like you just went to Disneyland for the first time as a child. And you can get drunk quickly, like we mentioned earlier. And also, these games can end really fast. You could be, 1-0 for like 10 minutes, and all of a sudden 2 cups get sunken and it's over. Tyler, what are some disadvantages of this game?
Yeah, first of all, I love how you mentioned that I sunk my own teammate's cup, but you forgot to mention that I sunk your own cup 4 times in one night. So thanks for not putting that in there. Really.
I don't remember.
He doesn't remember that.
I don't remember that because you were, because I sunk your cup 4 times.
I do remember, kind of.
So disadvantages of a beer die for me. One of the things, you can't play with a low ceiling, so you can't really play inside if it is super hot outside or super cold outside. It has to be done outside most likely, unless you're blessed with a super high ceiling in your house or wherever. So that's one disadvantage. Depending on the rules and how long you go, depending if it's 21 points or whatever, it can take a really long time. I believe we're playing it to 11, and it still, I think, took longer than the average beer pong game. The other thing I think is a disadvantage is that the targets just remain the same the whole time. It's a little bit more stagnant, which to me makes it a little bit less exciting. It's just kind of you're throwing the same die at the same spot every single time for 30 minutes or however long the game is.
Yeah, how can you not sink the cup if it's there every time?
Yeah, you would think so. And it is hard, but it also, for me, is a little bit less exciting because there's not as much moving parts to it. So those are my disadvantages of beer die.
That's a pretty complex answer as well. I didn't think about the whole target is in the same spot. It's usually got to be played outside. That's a disadvantage. A big disadvantage is you could sink your own cup. That's never a good thing. And the shots have to be underhand all the time. I haven't played where you're throwing it overhand, so it's pretty much one shot, one technique, one shot, one target. How can it be so hard? I don't know.
I think you can throw it overhand, but that would be insanely hard.
In Canada?
I just don't know why you would try. I think it'd be way hard.
Maybe we should try that next time. It'd be like a sky hook or something. So then just to wrap it all up, let's go around. Everyone, you tell me which game you like more. Alex, which game would you rather play?
I'm better at beer pong, but I haven't played Snappa/Beer Die in a while, so I'll pick that one.
Okay. Tradon.
All about Snappa/Beer Die for me. I mean, when I get to feel like, Marc-Andre Fleury with the saves off the table, I mean, that's what it's all about. Getting dirty, getting down and dirty. Let's go.
Yep. James.
Die, hands down. Hands down.
And Tyler.
All right, well, beer die has grown on me. I used to hate it, as we mentioned in previous podcasts. I do like it better than I used to, but for me, beer pong is still a king in with these two. I think it's just a more exciting game. There's more rules going on. Eric, you don't like the different house rules. I think that's cool. I think it adds a unique perspective depending on who you're playing and where you're playing with. There's re-racks, there's rebuttals, there's balls back. There's so much more that can happen within the game that I just really like, and I think it's more exciting than just throwing a dice up in there at the same cup. And coming from a baseball guy, I think this is America's pastime. So beer pong it is.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to completely disagree with everything you just said. Beer die for the win. 4 people like beer die. 1 person likes beer pong here. You heard it first. Beer die wins this debate. For now. When we play next time, it's going to be fun. Tyler, I got a vengeance for you, but for this week, that's all I got, boys.
Although, James, can you hold up a poll on Instagram or something to see
can.
how the fans are
I
feeling on
definitely
this?
we'll make that happen.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Let's let America decide.
Eric, thank you very much. Hot take here, everybody. Eric is the best at non-sports related segments. So, thank you, Eric.
He really is.
We're going to take another quick break. When we return, Tradon's going to talk about hockey playoffs.
Yep.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody. The conference finals are here, and Tradon is going to tell us all about it. Tradon, let's do that hockey.
Let's go. All right, guys. So we came here. It is September 8th. Geez, November. And we sit here with the Final Four. We were blessed. We had 3 series. Last series go to Game 7s. Albeit all the teams that gave up their 3-1 leads all ended up winning, as I think we kind of expected. Last podcast. I'm just going to jump right into the Eastern Conference Final here. We have Tampa Bay who whooped up on Boston pretty good, kind of uprooting everyone's idea that Boston is going to make it to the finals and win the Stanley Cup, versus the New York Islanders, the 6th seed going into the playoffs this year. I'm going to start just talking about Game 1. Game 1, Tampa Bay had a touchdown and 2-point conversion, and the Islanders had 2 points. It was a shellacking, as I say. The Lightning were off for an entire week after they beat Boston before heading over to Edmonton. They hopped off the plane and completely smashed the Islanders. The Islanders did have some resiliency early on in the first 5 minutes, tying the game. But from then on, it was all the Bolts. Braden Point with a 5-point game. Nikita Kucherov with a 5-point game. Yanni Gourde, who was an undrafted free agent, scored and brought him to 9 points in 14 games as a depth forward, which is huge. The Lightning forced their fast-paced game, brought it to the Islanders. The Islanders just seemed like they couldn't handle it that game. Tyler, I have to ask, we've seen the Islanders manage to figure out teams later on. It's hard to tell if they're going to be able to sit back and figure out what happened. That ability to tame the pace of the game, play their game, frustrate the Bolts, and that are clearly better than them, and stem the lightning storm that is the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I mean, clearly Game 1 showed just how deep and dominant that this Lightning team is. And like you mentioned, I think Game 2 is going to be the big teller to answer that question. If the Tampa Bay comes out and wins by more than 2 goals, I don't think there's any chance the Islanders are going to win the series. If the Islanders come back and put up a more solid fight, then I think we'll see a more interesting series. But I mean, Tampa Bay just dominated every single aspect of the stat line in that game. I mean, there's no, if I was an Islanders fan, there's not a lot of room for hope right now. So other than hopefully they come back in Game 2 and make a huge adjustment, I think they got good leadership on that team, so I think that they can if there's a team that would. But as we're sitting here right now, after that 8-2 dominant win, New York's got to figure something out. Otherwise, this year is going to be over real quick.
Definitely. People. I think people actually kind of expected it to be more of a chess match, as they say. The Islanders with their defensive style up against the Lightning, who we expected maybe would kind of play the game out and feel out their opponent a little bit. That really didn't transpire. I mean, the Bolts just took it to them and never let the Isles park the bus as they kind of always do. The bottom six was eaten alive. Every stat was, as you mentioned, every stat the Lightning dominated. But Eric, we kind of know that the Islanders have been much better than that. Do you think a day's rest in the bubble, in the new Edmonton bubble, with video review and time to figure out this team, is it going to be enough for them to, beat this Stamkos? We don't even have Stamkos. Do you think they're going to be able to beat this team and figure out this team?
I think they could beat this team. I don't know, in a series, maybe a couple games though. I think that 7-game series against the Flyers, it's starting to show on them, kind of like when the Jackets win in an extended series versus the Leafs. Their legs aren't underneath them as much. They're not that rough and tough closeout team that we didn't see that at all first game. They just got completely bullied that first game. And the things that they struggle with in the season, which was basically not being able to do dick with the puck. In other words, no offense, no scoring. It's kind of what we saw that first game. They're going to have to turn that around immediately for this next game. If they don't, they're in a lot of trouble because the Lightning aren't going away, and they took out some tough teams themselves, so they're ready for this.
Definitely. Something that's interesting that kind of we have to address was the fact that the Islanders did play a Game 7 2 days prior. They were asked to jump on a plane, fly to Edmonton, and play their game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, who had already been there 18 hours before they got there. James, do you think this was a fair shake by the NHL? Did they ruin the integrity by making the Islanders immediately come off the plane the next day, play a game, and not giving them at least a day's rest to kind of gather their thoughts, gather themselves so that they can actually have a good shake at this game?
Yeah, I don't think it was fair. I think they should have had the same amount of rest, but we all know that's kind of impossible because either way, like the Lightning would have had more rest. But I would have given the Islanders another day.
Yeah.
Like, give them some time to reacclimate to a different climate. They've been in the same bubble for a long time prior to this, and now they're going to a completely new and different place that the Lightning have been there 18 hours beforehand. It's the new environment sometimes helps people out, but I think the style of play that the Islanders play, just a physical grind, it doesn't put being in a new environment is another stressor. Instead of helping them out, that's a bad stress. And so that I feel bad for them, man, because they only have another day of rest and then they play again tomorrow. So like, oh man, it's like, I don't know if they'll recover.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you also have to factor in a time change. It's a 3-hour time change, a 2-hour time change, but still, that is enough to get you to, it's out of your comfort zone. So I do think that they did. I think the NHL dropped the ball on this one, but I think that the Islanders, at least will have after today, we can't really say that they haven't acclimated to the new environment. Maybe not quite to the same extent as the Tampa Bay Lightning, but at least they'll be kind of caught up. Lightning were kind of expected to make it this far. I mean, except for you guys who thought Boston would be making it to the finals. They've been one of the league's elite teams for 6 years now, and they're on their 4th different trip to the conference final. I mean, we have no team since 2014, 2015 has had more regular season wins. None have had that many postseason wins. They've cup within that time. So, Alex, is this the year that they're going to do it?
It sure feels like it. Even without Stamkos, who's, other than Kucherov, probably their best offensive player. The other guys are stepping up, like Braden Point that you just said had a 5-point game. He had that game winner in that game 1 5 overtime game that really possibly has, if they lost that game, we would be talking about a totally different team in the Eastern Conference Finals right now. So it sure feels like it. We'll see. I think the Islanders are going to give them a little bit more coming up the next couple games here, but it does seem like this is the Lightning's cup to lose, I guess.
Yeah. I want to kind of ask you something about Braden Point, actually, or something around him. So he's only had one game this postseason where he's been off the score sheet. He has 23 points in 14 games, goals 15 assists with a plus 11 rating. He was 79th overall third-round pick in 2014 by Tampa Bay, and he's been with them ever since. Alex, can you think of any other draft steal like this in any other pro sports off the top of your head? I mean, the guy has been on the precipice of 100 points in his past, consistently been solid in the postseason where it actually matters. The guy's scoring game-winning goals. Is there anybody in postseason that you could think of that, or not necessarily postseason, and as such a draft steal?
Yeah, there's this guy. He plays football. He just left New England to go into sunny Florida. Real solid. I think he's done like some shit in the playoffs. I can't remember. Yeah, Tom Brady. Tom Brady is possibly the best steal of all time. Tyler gave us a little message. Mike Piazza, to the lowest draft pick ever in baseball history to make the Hall of Fame. I would say in recent history, especially in the NHL, Braden Point has probably been the steal. Yeah. It's kind of a tough question because obviously, Brady and Piazza, they're, either have retired and made the Hall of Fame or going to go into the Hall of Fame when they do retire. And, Braden Point has not been around that long, doesn't have a cup yet. But, maybe he'll get one this year. Yeah,
I mean, Tyler, I think that Braden Point is one example and a prime example of how this team has really been built. Their lineup is a complex mix of higher round draft picks, not just first rounders. They have found players all over. They have Yanni Gourde, who was undrafted, Alex Killorn, who was a third-round draft pick, Cedric Paquette, who was a fourth-round draft pick. I mean, what do you think of the makeup of this team? Is this the way that teams should – do you think teams and GMs, scouts should be focusing more on the later-end, gems than putting so much of their time in the first round and making sure that, we get a player that's going to be good tomorrow, when clearly the Lightning have kind of bid their time and now are a team that, their window is still going to be open if they don't make it. This team's coming back, So, I mean, what do you think of this type of team? Do you think this is how they need to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think any sport you play, depth is hugely important to your team. That's the key. So, yeah, the first couple rounds are super important. Those are going to be your superstars in the future, hopefully. The guy's going to be the face of your franchise. But those later round picks are the guys that are going to win you the cup because they're the guys on those third, fourth lines that are going to contribute. And if you want to win hockey games, you got to have depth. And really any sport in any sense, like depth is so, so important. If you can find those gems in those late rounds, those are huge. I mean, those are, huge. I don't know if it's luck or I think it's a combination of luck. She's a guy that they drafted and happened to, kind of bloom late in their career, and then sometimes I think it's just good scouting. It's just they saw something in this kid and they knew that they could develop him into a really solid player. And Braden Point's a perfect example of that. And I think you see it in several sports, but I mean, even in fantasy sports, like those people that, draft their starting lineup and then auto pick the rest of the way, I think that's foolish because I don't know how many times I've probably drafted a guy in the 14th round that ends up, being my starter for the second half of the season. Like depth is so, so important with sports. So, I think that the Tampa Bay Lightning are one of the most well-rounded hockey teams in the league, and they have been for a very long time, like you mentioned. They just haven't quite figured it out in the postseason, but right now it's looking pretty good for them.
Definitely. So with the everyone, I'm going to go across the board here. Tampa Bay is obviously one game to none for the against the Islanders. James, who do you have in this series?
Lightning in 6.
Lightning in 6. Tyler?
I'm going to go Lightning in 5.
Alex?
Lightning in 6.
And Eric?
I've been thinking about it actually as we're sitting here. I'm going to go Islanders in 7. I think Barry Trotz is going to find some way to light a fire under their ass after just getting completely embarrassed game 1. They're going to push it to the limits and go game 7.
Yeah, I like that. I like that contrarian view because I agree. I don't think the Islanders are out. I think this may go to a 7-game series. At the end of the day, I think Tampa Bay has the Islanders number, but I would love to see a long series and put a little bit of pressure on Tampa Bay. Going over to the Western Conference Final, Golden Knights obviously finally beat the Canucks after they completely dominated the game, but they just couldn't score. They had no scoring. And Dallas, called it, beat the Avalanche in 7. Game 1, we saw each team shoot 25 shots on net. Dallas scores on their first shot, and that was it for all the scoring the rest of the game. Corsi stats were nearly even, with maybe a slight advantage to Dallas, which we haven't seen the Knights lose in many, many games now. And only 5 players, 4 on Dallas, didn't even hit. So the hits were early. They were often. It was a grinding game. Just Vegas looked a little flat. Stars were playing much faster. They looked like they had the fire under their ass. It looks like they weren't the ones that, played a Game 7, even though they both did. Eric, the Knights decided to go with Marc-Andre Fleury in Game 1. And he did put up a solid effort, 24 saves out of 25 shots, but he was beat by his counterpart by 1. Prior to the outcome of the game, did you find that surprising?
No, I didn't. I think Fleury has been – he's always ready to go. We've seen him with the Puns. We saw it against the Blackhawks, even though that was a way different series. I would have been so happy for multiple reasons to see the Canucks win that Game 7. 1, because you said they wouldn't even make it there. And 2, because it was like 0-0 until like 4 minutes left. The Canucks just couldn't do shit on their power play. But seeing Fleury in there didn't surprise me. And he pretty much did his job. He let in 1 goal, and they fucking lost. No one could score for Vegas, and it was great to see them get shut out. But it was Leonard tonight, and Leonard got the win. So it's like every time they pull Fleury and Leonard comes back in, it's like it reignites Leonard. So maybe it's a tactic by DeBoer. I don't even know.
Yeah, DeBoer went with Leonard, as you mentioned, after his solid performance. And I guess, that might be his game plan. He's just kind of flip however he wants. He doesn't really give a shit, which is very interesting. I don't really see that in the NHL at this level. But Vegas is finally starting to score. Obviously, they scored 3 against Dallas today. But goals were at such a premium for them. They just could not score in those last 3 games. I think I had, 127 shots and only 2 goals, against Demko, which was absolutely insane. James, you've been nearly driving the Stars bandwagon since the Avalanche series, and I think they somewhat shocked us in their ability to beat that team up and down the lineup at moments. Maybe they had better goaltending, but at the end of the day, they won. How do you feel about the Stars team in this series? You had a tight game that saw the Knights finally start to drum up offense late in the first, and then they obviously drummed up a lot of offense in this game. Do you think that they will be able to go back to how Game 1 was, stymie the Golden Knights and win the series?
I don't know. This entire series actually kind of scares me. I thought Dallas I was very confident in Dallas against the Avs, not so confident with them against the Knights. We've seen Dallas win a bunch of different ways. Traditionally they're a very physical, grinded out defensive team, but then you see against the Avs, they can also win in shootouts and score a lot of goals. But right now, man, they match up really well with Vegas. Vegas is very fast, as we just saw in Game 2 right now where they lost 3-0. And the goaltending for the Stars doesn't look like it's there right now. They had to pull Khudobin after the second period and put in some guy that I've never heard of in my entire life, making his NHL debut. If they can get Ben Bishop back now, that'd be great, because I think now would be a great time to replace Khudobin after this showing. On the flip side of that, you got to get Tyler Seguin going. He hasn't done shit this entire playoffs, and he was our leading scorer during the regular season. Yeah. So he needs to show up. He's been due for a long time. He needs to do something now if they want any shot at this. If Tyler Seguin doesn't show up, the Knights will take this series.
Yeah, definitely. Tyler and Alex, we saw goaltending was pretty much the story in the Canucks-Knights series. We saw the emergence of the sensational Thatcher Demko from San Diego, local boy, keeping the Knights to only 2 goals on 127 shots, as I mentioned. He's a star in the making, clearly. But it also was a story of the Knights' poor offense. I think that their offense just kind of dried up. And the Stars prior to this series have also been scoring by the bunches. In the last couple of games, they've kind of dried up as well. I mean, prior to this game, I thought that, Vegas is going to continue with that dried spell, but obviously they didn't. Tyler does, and I guess Stars continue to have some scoring issues, 42, only one goal and 49 shots. So Alex, I'll start with Alex. Are you concerned about both teams' ability to score at any given time? I mean, we've seen them put up a lot of goals and then they kind of dry up.
Yeah, I think pun intended, the stars of the stars, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin need to get going. And if those guys get going, I would be less worried about it for Dallas. The Knights, on the other hand, they feel like a more deep and complete team. And I think I have a little more faith that they'll be a team that can just kind of like squeak some goals in. I also, I think the duo in goal for Vegas is probably going to be what sways this series. But if those guys on Dallas can get hot, I mean, no one can really stop them if they're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, Tyler, what do you feel about the potential dry spell of these two teams at any given time?
Yeah, I think they both have tendencies to not be able to score goals. I don't know if that's just good goaltending on opposite sides, or it's just an offense that is hot and cold. I think for Vegas, I kind of agree with Alex. They're a more deep team. I think they can get scoring from a lot other places than Dallas can. So for me, it's Dallas. It's kind of like either their top scorers are scoring or they're kind of screwed, which I think they definitely can. They have so far this playoff. They've surprised me a lot. Like, I didn't have them getting past the first round, and they're here in the Western Conference Final. They're playing hot. In that first game, I think the big thing for Dallas was the takeaways. They won that 18-7. I think, like James mentioned, that kind of stingy, grinded out kind of hockey team. I think that's their ingredient to play well, and hopefully they just get enough goals to win. But yeah, as far as the dry spells, I'm definitely more concerned about Dallas than Vegas for sure.
Interesting. I'll echo my dad what he said about the Knights prior to today's game, is that they struggled to move and score east to west, something that I know, but the Oilers are very good at that. But as I was writing my notes, they had scored an east to west goal. So, I mean, they are able to move the puck better than a lot of teams in the NHL. They just weren't able to put it in the damn net. But obviously today kind of changed that. I want to shout out Joel Kiviranta. He stepped in to fill for Andrew Cogliano, who was unfit to play in Game 7 of their series. He put up a freaking hat trick, and the final goal was the OT winner. He only registered one goal and 1 point, so 0 assists in 11 games prior, and was asked to be in the bubble as that 13th to 15th forward, at any given time should a player go down. And his line mates, Rupe Hintz and Guryanov, who has also been a force, they've been a presence. They were a presence all night long in that Game 1, with 8 shots, 10 hits, 2 block shots. Then the stats go on. So James and Eric, I'll ask you guys both, as a coach, when Cogs is good to play, how hard would it be to send Kiviranta back to the press box? Or do you? James?
I think it's going to be very hard. I love Andrew Cogliano to death. He's an Iron Man. Like, he hasn't missed a game a lot. He's with the Ducks. But you got to ride the hot hand here, man. This guy has been showing out. He's been giving his all. You can't demote him like that when he literally got you to the next series. Like, why? It doesn't make sense to me. Ride the hot hand. Keep him in. I'm sorry, Cogs. You're my boy, but like, nah, man. You got to stay out for this one.
And Eric?
Yeah, it's tough to take a guy out that had a hat trick in a Game 7 to make you move on to the Western Conference Final. It depends. If Cogliano, if it takes him a few games, and you give this guy a few more games to see if he can keep producing that depth for you, and if he can't, then you ride Cogliano back in there.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because obviously Rick Bowness is looking for the win. He doesn't really care who's in the lineup as long as they're going to win. And hockey can be a little bit of a loyalty game in that because Andrew Cogliano is such a vet and is such an Iron Man, as you mentioned, James, he may just go flip right back just because you got to, while it may be wrong, it just might be the case. But I would agree that I think you got to play Kiviranta as long as you can. So
actually, I think in game one of the series, he was a healthy scratch. So I think he was able to play in game one of the series. I just don't think he was put in.
He might gotta get our fact checkers on that one.
I'll double check that.
Hockey guy doesn't know the hockey stat.
Eric. Oh, he was the odd man out. You're right. So there you go. So he's riding the hot hand. Eric, is there a player on each team other than Shea Theodore and Miro Heiskanen, respectively, that has impressed you or stood out?
Yes. A dude named Jamie Benn. He had an assist on the only goal in that first game, which ended up being the game winner. But this guy's all over the ice. He'll eat pucks for dinner. He'll bundle guys on the boards, and he'll create opportunities. He's the captain of the team. I expect him to keep doing this. I mean, tonight he didn't do shit, but I expect him to wake the boys up and get it going for him.
And anybody on the Golden Knights, or you just hate him, so you're not going to say anything?
Probably that dude, Mark Stone. That guy just always scores goals when it matters. He's probably going to do that this series. He may have had one tonight, but hopefully he doesn't do that.
Yeah, he's been a fantastic two-way player this whole series. He just can steal the puck out of nowhere. It's crazy. All right, last question. Tyler, who you got?
Vegas in 6.
James?
Stars in 7.
Eric?
Stars in 7.
Oh, and Alex.
Vegas in 5.
Oh, and do you want to say why it's going to be so short?
Yeah, I don't trust that Sagan's gonna pick it up. He's looked awful. He doesn't look like he's got the legs. He looks tired. I think the Knights' depth is going to overtake the Stars.
Fair enough. I'm on the Vegas in 7, actually. I want to see a 7-game series between these two teams. But with that, that is the hockey playoff so far.
Thank you, Tradon. Tradon, as always, our hockey guy, giving us a lot of good information, good conversation. We're going to take another quick break here, but when we return, Tyler's going to talk about his baseball with his weekly, oh shit, moments of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only 3 weeks of baseball left. And to be honest, the season right now is just as exciting as it was when it first started. Tyler, tell us about the most interesting storylines of this last week.
Oh, damn. I haven't done these in a few weeks, so I'm pretty excited to get back into this, guys. Starting out at number 5, a couple of milestones for a couple of future Hall of Famers. One on the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, Mr. Mike Trout, hit his 300th home run Saturday against the Astros, and along with hitting his 300th home run, became the Angels' all-time leader, surpassing Tim Salmon. He is the 11th youngest in baseball history to reach 300. He's the youngest ever to hit 300 home runs and steal 200 bases, beating out this one guy called Willie Mays. He's not really that good, but, whatever.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. So Mike Trout just doing Mike Trout things. On the other side of the 5 freeway, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw, he notched his 2,500th strikeout of his career against the Diamondbacks with a good old Uncle Charlie, classic curveball. He's the 3rd youngest in history to reach 2,500 strikeouts. That game, too, he was dominating. He was throwing a no-hitter into the 6th inning, struck out 8 total, which moved him to 39th on the all-time strikeout list. So 2 very impressive stats. Obviously, Kershaw's been around for a little bit longer than Trout has, but, they're two sides of the field here, offense and defense. So, Eric, I want to ask you, which is more likely, Mike Trout hitting 600 home runs or Clayton Kershaw throwing 3,000 strikeouts in their career?
First off, congratulations, Mike Trout, on hitting your 300th home run. Well-deserved. The season has been weird, different. He had a kid. The world was fucked by a virus, and the baseball season was cut in half. But I'm going to go with the old Angels bias. I think Trout gets to 700 before Kershaw gets to 3,000. Merely on a numbers factor, that's 400 versus 500. But Kershaw's going to have plenty of chances to get his strikeouts. It's going to be a good little race. I think Trout gets to 700 home runs first.
Dang, yeah, I think they're both very huge milestones to reach. Mike Trout, I have no doubt, is going to have an amazing career and get pretty damn close to that number. I feel a little bit more confident with him. Kershaw, however, it seems like, if you were asking me this last year, I'd probably say he wouldn't get 3,000. But he's looked really, really good this season. He's kind of shown that classic Kershaw. So maybe he's going to hit a late career stride here and pick it up. We'll see what happens. But I would love to see Kershaw get 3,000. So moving into number 4, I'm going to talk about the MLB home run race. Because this season is so shortened, it kind of gives us a few things to talk about that are really, really interesting that we probably normally wouldn't get. So usually with a home run race, you have like 2, maybe 3 guys kind of battling for that home run race. We got like 8 guys right now going down to the wire battling for this home run lead, which makes it really, really exciting for me. So this was as of Monday, September 7th. You got 2 guys at the top of the leaderboard, Mike Trout and Fernando Tatis Jr. with 15 apiece. Teoscar Hernandez of the Blue Jays has 14. And then you got 5 players tied with 13 home runs: Nelson Cruz, Marcell Ozuna, Mookie Betts, Jose Abreu, and Luke Voit. So I asked each of you guys who you guys think is going to end 2020 with the home run crown. James, I'll start with you.
Mike Trout. He has 15 home runs right now, and he has less at bat than anybody else who's mentioned it. He's also the best player in the world, so that little pedigree he's probably going to win it, in my opinion, in the shortened season.
Don't hate that pick. Tradon, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, this was tough. As an Angels fan, I needed to choose between Mike Trout and my boy Tatis. But Nelson Cruz actually just got his 15th today, so that's new. It's new news. But I have to go with Tatis. He's my guy this year. But I gotta hand it to Mike Trout. I mean, as James said, less at bats. He's scoring a home run every 2.5 games. His average is 4.1 games per home run. So he goes like 4 games without, but until he hits a home run in his pass. I mean, the guy's a mutant this year, man. He's just a mutant. So it's gonna be a toss up, but I have to ride my boy Titties, baby.
There you
go.
go.
Pause.
You're gonna pick that guy. Alex, who do you got?
Nelson Cruz. Mike Trout is definitely a better player than Nelson Cruz. There's no denying that fact. But Nelson Cruz, over his career, is a much better home run hitter than anyone in the game. If you look it up, he leads the league in the last 10 years with bombs. He's 40, and all that dude does is mash. He also gets to play some weaker opponents in the central divisions. So, yeah, I'm going to go Nelson Cruz.
Nice. He's on my fantasy team, so I hope that ends up happening. Eric, who do you got?
I got Titties. Tatis, you got to ride. We're speaking of riding the hot hand this whole podcast. I'm riding the hot hand with him. Love Trout, but Tatis has that fire in his eyes this year. He's got some. His team is going to make the playoffs. They're looking good, so I think he continues on with that.
I was also going to pick Nelson Cruz, but because Alex picked him, on to go somewhere a little different. So my number 2 choice was Mookie Betts. Dodger guy, signed that huge contract extension. He seems to be tearing up the National League pitching. So I'm going to go with Mookie Betts. Going to end up with that home run crown. A little bit of a dark horse there, I think, for the home run race, but someone's got to say it, right? All right, coming in at number 3, oh damn moment. Super weird 2020 moment. Nationals GM Mike Rizzo was ejected from a baseball game while sitting in his suite up in the 3rd deck in a game in Atlanta on Sunday. Never seen this happen in my lifetime, at least. So at one point during the game on Sunday, the umpire made a questionable call on an outside pitch, and he called it a strike to one of the Nationals hitters. And Mike Rizzo, the GM, from his suite was yelling something at the umpires. The umpires didn't like it, and they tossed him out of the game. According to some reports, that the umpires actually filed a complaint against Rizzo on Friday, so 2 days prior, about him making comments during the game. No details on exactly what was said. So what happened was after he was tossed, Joe West, you know, if you guys know anything about baseball, he's probably one of the weirdest, most asshole umpires that has ever lived. Walked into the Braves dugout, used a phone, called security to make sure that Mike Rizzo was going to be kicked out of the game. He also complained that the GM Mike Rizzo was not wearing a mask, even though he's sitting by himself in a suite 100 feet away from everybody. Also, Joe West, whatever you call that dirty sock you're wearing on your face, it's not a mask. Get a bigger mask. You look like a fool with that mask. It doesn't even cover both your face and your nose. You just look ridiculous. Like, get a bigger mask, dude. Seriously. But Tradon, I wanted to ask you about this. I sent you the video. Just your take on this, first of all, and then secondly, like, what is your favorite all-time sports ejection?
Okay, so you're triggering a rant when you gave me this one, right?
Mm-hmm. That was the goal.
Was it Joe West, buddy? You fat fuck. Are you serious? The guy. Okay, so I don't know much about baseball. I don't know much about Joe West, but from what I'm hearing, I did a lot of research on this to figure out what the hell this guy is all about. This guy wants more. He wants the camera on him. He doesn't want to be an official. He wants to be a player. He wants everyone to look at him. If he's getting yelled at, he's like, oh, I want to be part of this whole thing. He's more worried about his own image than the image of the game. The guy has been in the league, been umpiring for what, like 130,000 years. The guy, it's about time he retired, you fat fuck. I mean, this is the weakest ejection I've ever seen. Mike Rizzo is literally called down, allegedly saying, you guys are brutal. He's been saying it all game. Guys, if there were fans in the stands, especially with the call that was made, that's gonna be thrown out at least once or twice, and actually a couple F-bombs probably. And to basically send Mike Rizzo out when he's on the third tier. Oh, and by the way, you had to call security because your panties are in a bunch because he said that you were brutal. Well, he's just spitting facts. Fuck. Like, are you serious? Oh, and by the way, Joe West, just retire. You're making. We talked about this before. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to move this game forward to make it more, I guess, younger, get away from the old image, get away from the oldness of the game. And he's like trying to keep it there. He's trying to keep the integrity of this old boys club, and he just needs to just cool it. He's probably, he's on my shit list. I'll tell you right now. I thought it was absolute bullshit. Now, what really made it bad, and when I did some research here, is that usually when these type of things happen, there's a reporter that will go to the umpires to kind of figure out what transpired before it kind of goes public. But Joe Fatfuck West decided to, on his own accord, to the Associated Press, have an interview about the whole thing without letting the MLB do their thing. And it just kind of adds to his repertoire of being a know-it-all and a big-headed guy who is kind of a cocky ref. I don't like cocky refs. I don't want them to take away from the game. They are officiating the game. They are not part of playing the game. Just do your job, or don't do your job. Just get out of the MLB. That said, in hockey, there's not very many ejections that are as great as baseball. Baseball is the best. And I'm just going to pick three that I liked because I can't really pick my favorite. Is it Piniella? I don't know. It was in 2007. After a blown call, he like freaked out and started kicking dirt on the umpire's shoes. That's epic. Joe Girardi went at it in 2014 at this guy, got sent right out. And a lot of these ejections are actually worth it because these calls are so bad. But the best one has to go to Lloyd McClendon in 2001, where the motherfucker steals first base and throws it down the dugout. Is absolutely epic. It is the best thing I've ever seen. Lloyd McClendon, you're my boy, even though that was, like 19 years ago. It's still epic.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the most underrated parts about baseball are when managers just lose their shit.
Yes.
And they just go absolutely crazy as umpires. You don't see it as much anymore, unfortunately, with replay being a part of baseball. But in the minor leagues, I'll tell you, there is no replay. And minor league, I saw a lot of it last season. I mean, it's so much fun to watch and so much fun to be in the dugout. I mean, the amount of trash talk that goes on between coaches and umpires throughout the whole game. I mean, there's so many times when I thought our guy was going to get tossed and didn't. Just the shit he was saying, and umpires usually give it right back. So they're most of the time they're usually pretty. They got some pretty tough skin, but every once in a while you'll get those guys that are a little butthurt about things, like Joe West was, I think, in this case.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to my number 2. Oh damn! If you guys are peeking at the standings, by far the closest and most interesting race is the AL Central. As we're sitting here on Tuesday, the Chicago White Sox and the Cleveland Indians are tied for first place, and the Minnesota Twins are right behind them, a half a game back. So we got 3 teams battling for that AL Central title. I think obviously I think it's pretty clear that all 3 of these teams will make the playoffs. So it's just kind of more for seeding with this new playoff format. It's not quite as exciting because, that division winner will be much more important than it would be now. But Alex, you picked the Cleveland Indians to win the division. I picked the Minnesota Twins. The Chicago White Sox have been super hot lately, one of the most exciting teams to watch right now. Who is your pick with 3 weeks left to take the AL Central crown?
This one's tough. They kind of all have different aspects of their game that they perform the best at. The Cleveland Indians are one of the top 3 best pitching staffs in baseball. Shane Bieber's going to win the AL Cy Young. The Minnesota Twins are one of the best offensive teams in baseball. They mash, obviously, when Nelson Cruz wins the home run title. And then the White Sox are kind of that team that does everything really great and nothing just terrible. So I'm going to actually, when you asked me about this, I was like, I'm going to pick the Indians. I'm going to stick with my guns. And the more and more I've thought about it, I think I'm going to go with the White Sox because they are a more well-rounded team. They can hit, they can pitch, they play defense. I'm going to go with the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, it's a solid pick. I think they're a team that everyone's paying attention to. I think them and the Padres are everyone's kind of team to watch in terms of just the young, exciting talent they got. So I think that's a solid pick. I'm going to stick with the Twins. I think they're going to pull it out. But honestly, it could be any one of these 3 teams. So it's going to be a real exciting race to watch going forward. All right, moving on to my number 1. Oh, damn. The New York Yankees are currently in 3rd place and in danger of falling out of a playoff spot. After their loss today to Toronto, they are now they have a 500 record at 21-21. To give that in context, they started out the season 16-6, running away with the AL Central. They have lost 15 of the last 20 games. Currently, are on a 5-game losing streak. Just a couple of their stats for you guys. Over this span, this is going to yesterday, so this might have gotten worse. They're hitting 203 as a team over this current 5-15 run, with an abysmal 186 with runners in scoring position. I think there's a lot of things that are pointing to the Yankees' struggles right now. I think injuries on offense has kind of been a key point to that. I think poor pitching has also contributed. I think a lot of guys aren't pitching up to their normal standard. And they've lost 8 out of 10 games to the division-leading Rays, which doesn't help their standings at all. If you guys were watching, it got a little chippy last week with the Rays and Yankees. Aroldis Chapman, bushily kind of head-hunting fastball to the Rays there in late innings. It got a little chippy. A lot of words were said, a lot of fighting words. Unfortunately, the Rays and Yankees don't play each other the rest of the season. So we probably won't get much of a rebuttal unless they face each other in the postseason if the Yankees even make it. Yesterday, in their loss to the Blue Jays, the Yankees complained that the lights weren't right and they accused the Blue Jays of sign stealing. So clearly they're complaining and butthurt about this whole losing streak situation. I think their whole clubhouse vibe is not where it needs to be right now. In yesterday's game, they gave up 10 runs in the 6th inning and a 12-7 loss to the Blue Jays. They lost again today. James, with all what's going on right now, are you worried about the Yankees even making the postseason?
Yeah, dude, big time worried. I mean, they've lost the last 5 games. I think you just mentioned that, but they've lost the last 5 games. They're losing to teams in the division, teams that they should be beating. Like they lost the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are in second. They're in third. They need to win these games right now, and they're just not doing it, man. And the fact that they're making up all these excuses and reaching and like they got to take accountability. Just the fact that they're blaming other things, everything else but themselves right now is what's shooting them in the foot. The second they take accountability for their actions and just say, hey, we suck, we got to get better, that's when they start succeeding. But right now, man, you're blaming other things. You're accusing people of science thing, like saying that you're just not as good because of some random surgery you had. Like, dude, like the lights are weird. That doesn't make any sense. Take some accountability. You're bad because you're bad. Get better. That's once that mindset changes and that perspective changes, that's when they can start to succeed. But until then, it's just toxic.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I think the Yankees are in trouble here. I think it's really bad when you get those type of comments from the clubhouse, like talking about the lights. I mean, the Blue Jays were playing in the same conditions as you were, and they kicked your ass. So whatever lights you're complaining about, the exact same team is playing with the exact same situation. And, you know, with sign stealing and stuff, I mean, everyone talks about the Astros, the sign stealing, and I mean, there's been sign stealing going on. That's usually a part of the game normally, if you can relay it and do other ways. I would love to talk about this more often in another segment, but it doesn't seem like it's, you know, the things that Astros did. It's normal sign stealing that happens probably every game. So in my opinion, the Yankees are in trouble, not just because they're playing poorly, but I think their clubhouse is a toxic environment. I mean, just with all the things that I've seen from this team in the last week or so, I'm not confident that this team can turn it around in, you know, 3 weeks and make the playoffs. With the only thing I think that's going to save them is that the AL overall isn't as strong, and I think it's not as deep in terms of how many teams are actually in the race. So they might get in there by default, just because there's not a lot of other teams that can probably step in and overtake them. That might be their saving grace, but other than that, I think the Yankees are in pretty rough shape right now. And that's all I got for MLB.
Thank you, Tyler. Always doing baseball stuff. Just in case you guys didn't realize, it used to be Oh Damn, but since it's the last weeks of the season, it's now his Oh Shit moments of the week.
Shit.
We're going to take another quick break here, and when we return, Alex is going to tell us all about the drama-filled NBA playoffs. Welcome back. The first round of the NBA playoffs went largely as everybody expected, but man, the second round is an entirely different story. Alex, take it away.
Yeah, James, I'm going to throw this right back at you because during the last podcast, I asked you, the Bucks were down 1-0 in that series, and I said, hey, James, are you worried about the Bucks? And you gave me a big fat, no, I'm not worried. They'll be fine. Update, they're not fine.
I'm worried.
They're out of the playoffs. You should be worried, yeah. They are out of the playoffs. They lost Game 5 to the Miami Heat earlier this evening, 103-94. Giannis Antetokounmpo did not play in this game. He twisted his ankle technically in Game 3 and then played part of the way through Game 4. Did have to come out of that game. Chris Middleton took over, and the Bucks did win Game 4 in OT. And then Miami just took it to the Bucks today. Middleton just got swallowed up by that Miami Heat defense that I talked about at the end of the last podcast. But James, so I can't really ask what do you think about, or you definitely go over the series, tell me what you think, and then tell me what do you think the Bucks need to do moving forward into this offseason.
So I think the Bucks' biggest weaknesses got exposed this series, obviously because they lost. But they have an extreme reliance on Giannis and his play. When Giannis plays well, they do well. When Giannis has an off series like he did, they shit the bed. And so I think when he went out and got injured in game number 4, when they won, I think it was a good learning environment for everybody else on the team. They need to learn how to play without Giannis running the point. Like, we got to play how the Heat play. The Heat spread the ball around. They do well. They play as a team. The Bucks didn't really have that. They relied on 2 players the entire season and the first round of the playoffs. And then when one of those star players went out, probably the best player in the NBA right now, or had a shitty game, they did not do well. They need to learn how to play without Giannis. And I think they showed flash of that too in Game 5 that they just lost. They showed flashes, but then they just got too tired because they lost confidence. It's a big confidence game right now. If they can learn how to play well without Giannis and then implement all the stuff they've learned when Giannis comes back next season, they're going to be a team. They're going to be a scary team, man, all the way through. I think one of the biggest mistakes they did, though, this last offseason is they let Malcolm Brogdon go. Eric Bledsoe is a great player overall, but Malcolm Brogdon is younger and would have done better in that scenario over Eric Bledsoe. For the offseason, this coming offseason, I think they need to find a way to get some leadership other than Giannis on the team. I hear a lot of whispers right now, some rumors that Chris Paul is being shopped like he was last season. And Billy Donovan's out as a coach of the Thunder as of, 2 hours ago. And so there is a good chance that Chris Paul is gone too. And if Chris Paul is gone, you got to find a way to make a trade get Chris Paul. Because Chris Paul, with that leadership in the Bucks and Giannis and Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, they can play without Giannis at that point. So I think that's the biggest thing. And like one of the things too is that the Bucks have zero salary cap right now. Dump some contracts that don't work for you. Eric Bledsoe is owed 16 mil. Figure out a way to get rid of that. Get Chris Paul in there, and then you got a championship caliber team.
That would be a huge shakeup in the NBA landscape for sure if Chris Paul, after bringing the Thunder into the playoffs out of nowhere, and then they just let him shop him to the Bucks. That would be crazy. I can't envision that happening, but you never know. But you're 100% right about Malcolm Brogdon. The Bucks need a third scorer who can get shots off himself. That was the problem when Giannis is out. The whole offense has to run through Chris Middleton because there's no one else on that team that can get shots up for themselves. Moving forward, the Miami Heat, I think, look nasty. They look deep. Their defense is looking really strong. Jimmy Butler is possibly one of the most tenacious players in this league. And it'll be really interesting to see now they get a little bit of rest, and then they will face whoever comes out of that Celtics-Raptors series that we'll talk about in a little bit. Moving on, though, Ty, we're going to the Lake Show. Since the last podcast, they played 3 games. So the Rockets did win that Game 7 we talked about last week against the Thunder. The Lakers then lost Game 1 to the Rockets. They looked awful. James Harden mentioned that it's everyone who has heart is going to win those games. I think the Lakers took that to heart. They came back and won Game 2 and Game 3. The dynamic duo of LeBron James and Anthony Davis scored a combined total of 62 points in today's win. And Rajon Rondo dropped 21. What is the importance for the Lakers with Rondo coming back?
Yeah, that first game, Rondo coming back looked pretty rusty. I think he was a large part in why the Lakers lost the game. He had a lot of turnovers. I think turnovers was a big key in that Houston win in Game 1, especially with the points off turnovers. Houston got 27 points off turnovers. Lakers only got 12. But since then, in Game 2 and 3, Rondo's been looking incredible. He said that he dropped 21 tonight. In Game 2, he had 10 points, 9 assists. He also had a plus 28 rating when he was on the floor in Game 2. So Rondo's looking really good. He had a lot of huge threes in that fourth quarter today. So if we can get some playoff Rondo going with this Lakers squad to add with that AD and LeBron duo, I mean, that's going to be huge for the Lakers going forward. I always knew that getting Rondo back was going to be huge for this Lakers team. I think he has a ton of playoff experience, and if he's playing at his top game, this is a hard Lakers team to beat.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to LeBron with this win tonight. He is now the all-time playoff winningest player, I guess. He's won the most playoff games of all time. Helps when you go to 8 finals in a row. Those add up real quick. Kind of the same thing for the Lakers as we just talked about with the Bucks. With Rajon Rondo back on the court, there's another facilitator for those guys that can't get shots up. Without Rondo, it was literally all on LeBron to kind of facilitate for those guys. Rondo's not the defender he used to be, but this Lakers-Rockets series will be really interesting. Tyler, just real quick, what do you envision the rest of the series looking like?
Yeah, so far it's kind of playing a lot like the last series against the Trailblazers. After Game 1, I was a little bit worried and I don't know. All those doubts that creep in your mind, every little bad thought comes in. But then these last 2 games, they've made the adjustment and stepped up and played very, very well. I think in both Game 2 and 3, the games were really close. The Lakers were either losing or only winning by a little bit. And they've come in and had just amazing fourth quarters. They shut it down on defense and made the offensive adjustments they needed in that fourth quarter. And if they can play like that, I see no reason why this series is going to go more than 6 games. So I feel like the Lakers right now, as long as they can keep pushing keeping their pedal on the gas.
There you go.
There you go. In those fourth quarters, Houston's gonna be in trouble because I just think eventually they're just gonna those bigs, those Lakers, and this Lakers depth is gonna overwhelm them. But it's definitely a much more exciting series to watch than against the Trailblazers. I think this game 3 was probably the most exciting game so far. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go Lakers in 6. I think Houston will probably squeak in one more game there. But I think the Lakers are, looking pretty good right now with Rondo coming back. Seems like this team's going to be able to get by the Rockets fairly easily.
Yeah, flipping to the Houston side, Russell Westbrook's going to have to start playing better. He's been turning the ball over a lot. His shooting has seemed awful. He needs to be that tandem with James Harden. He did drop 30 tonight, but he's looked off timing-wise with the rest of that Houston Rockets team. The Rockets have looked better without Russell Westbrook on the floor, which is a crazy thing to say because Russell Westbrook is obviously a very talented player. Moving to the other side of the Western bracket, we got Clippers-Nuggets. It is a 2-1 series, so they've kind of flip-flopped games there. Pat Bev throwing some shade at Jokic at the end of Game 3, saying, "Oh, you're just like Doncic. What's all that flopping?" Jokic responds with, "I don't know what you're talking about. Your guys are the ones that took all the free throws." Eric, my Clipper dude. So what do you think about his comments? And then what do you think about Mike Malone, the Nuggets coach, saying, "Dude, it's Pat Bev. I don't give a shit. If it was Kawhi Leonard, maybe we'd listen." What do you think about that? And what do you think about the series?
I think that you'll never hear Kawhi speak in the first place. So what Malone said was pretty funny, but Kawhi ain't ever going to say shit. Pat Bev is just doing what Pat Bev does. Maybe that's just a tactic of his to get in their head. It's just him being himself. That's how that guy is. It's a tactic to get into the other team. Personally, the guys are good, but he's a guy you would love to have on your team, a guy you love to hate when he's not on your team. And then as far as the series goes, Game 1, Clippers came out banging. They couldn't miss a shot. It seemed kind of like Game 1 of that Mavs series. Game 2 was the complete opposite. Nuggets came out, punched them in the mouth, and they didn't lay off the gas pedal. Clippers shot themselves in the foot, too. I think in the fourth they were down by like 6. They just had some bad possessions, couldn't get it going. The Murray and Joker duo is no joke. That guy Jokic, fuck, man. Him and Anthony Davis are like probably 2 of the best bigs in the league currently right now for sure in the playoffs. Game 3 last night was intense, back and forth. You got to give the Nuggets credit. I think they played 3 out of 4 good quarters, but the fourth quarter was the one that mattered the most. And you give a lot of shout to your boy LeBron. I got to give a shout out to my guy Kawhi, who literally won the game by blocking a huge dunk on Murray with his 7-foot-long middle finger. Just a standard Kawhi maneuver, like something that would happen with him, his big claw hand. Just got in the way. So get that baby out the street. We got a series coming. It's gonna be a grind, just like that Mavericks series. I don't think it's gonna be as easy as people think, but I think I'm seeing Clippers in 6 games.
Yeah, that block was pretty amazing. I don't know how Kawhi's finger didn't just snap all the way back. That's some crazy finger strength right there. If you have not seen that picture or the video of that block, go check it out because it's crazy. Flipping to the Nuggets, dude, Jokic might be the best passing big man I've seen since Tim Duncan. He's crazy on the floor for being kind of a big lumbering dude. He really gets around. He sees the floor like not many other big men do in this landscape of the NBA anymore. I think I agree with you. I think this is going to be a much tougher series for the Clippers than maybe people expect. I could see it going 7 games, but I do expect the Clippers to come out of it. Tradon, finishing up with you. This one's been a wild series. So the Celtics went up 2-0. We talked about it last week. We were all a little worried about the Raptors. We kind of needed them to step up. And then they did. They came back and won games 3 and 4. It was tied 2-2, and then Boston sort of just stomped on them in Game 5. So we got a 3-2 series there. Celtics are up. Game 6 is tomorrow night. What did you think of the Raptors' response to that 2-0 deficit, and then the Celtics going, you know what? No, let us show you what kind of balls we got.
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting. I mean, literally the Celtics were a half a second away from going up 3-0 in game 3, but it was a buzzer beater that kind of sent it to 2-1. That's the kind of game it could go either way. I mean, you see that in all kind of sports. It's Game 4 that I really think was the defining, well, what I thought was the defining moment for the Raptors. Kyle Lowry and Siakam defined their win. Siakam finally had his game. Like, he finally played well. And it wasn't just his 23 points that he dropped. He had some confidence. He was attacking, scoring. It was all over Jason Tatum. He was 17 of 47 through the first 3 games, which is not great. And he just was getting punished. And he wasn't able to punish his mismatches with Kemba Walker. But Game 4, he completely changed that. He attacked. He was an offensive leader. And he was looking like the guy. And then you look at Kyle Lowry, who, he's Kyle Lowry. Even when I watched him last year, he has the tendency to be that tenacious guy that, plays all up and down the court, drawing fouls, diving on the floor, being that leader. And Toronto's needs those two to do that, to go forward. And they were shooting better. Boston defended fine, but I just think they could drop threes enough to win them the game. That was kind of how Game 4 went. And then Game 5, that was a big response. Boston completely took back control. Was a 111-89 to take the 3-2 lead. Celtics dominated defensively, showing why they finished 4th in defensive rating. This season. It took the Raps 2.5 minutes to even drop a point, which is kind of how their whole game kind of went. They just could not get it together. Celtics held the Raps to 11 points in the entire first quarter, which is a record, which is tied for a record for Toronto in the postseason. And I just think that, the Celtics figured out a way to beat this team, even when Siakam didn't have a great game. And I think that's kind of very similar to what James said about Giannis and the Bucks, is that if Siakam isn't playing well, the team isn't quite good enough. And Kyle Lowry is fantastic player, but he's not enough. They need a guy to get them over the hump. And obviously, if Siakam's not doing it, then they're not. They don't have a Kawhi Leonard anymore. The defending champs right now are on the brink, and they have to win 2 straight. They did it last year, but again, they don't have a Kawhi Leonard. So it's going to be tough. NBA teams who win Game 5 of a matchup that's been 2-2 take the series 82% of the time. So Siakam will need to be their Kawhi Leonard, as I mentioned over and over again. And he needs to be lights out for 2 straight games. He can't take a game off. He has to do it. And we've only seen him really take it over a game once. So I don't know. I'm nervous. I think they could respond and have a great Game 6, but they haven't shown that they can do it for 2 games in a row, they did win 2 games in a row, but it wasn't because of Siakam. I think it was just, they won off a buzzer beater, so that could have went either way.
Yeah, this series, for sure. If that buzzer beater doesn't go in, this series could have been over in 5. I picked the Raptors to make it out of the East. I'm not super pumped on that pick anymore. I think the Celtics are going to win Game 6 tomorrow night. We're going to see a Boston-Miami Eastern Conference Finals. And I think most of us would agree that we're going to see the 2 LA teams in the Western Conference Finals. But they've, those series have got a long ways to go, so anything could happen. The NBA playoffs are getting down to the wire. The NHL players get down to the wire. Pretty soon we got football back, so it's interesting sports times for sure.
Yeah.
That's all I got, though, James.
Thanks, Alex. That just about wraps it up for us on our end here. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. I'm about to pull Pat McAfee here, and if you guys like this last hour and a half episode, go ahead and tell your friends about it. If you didn't, let's forget it ever happened. We'll try again next week. Please like, comment, subscribe, give us a rating on Apple Podcast. If you can like on Spotify, I don't know you can, but give that a shot. See what happens. Follow us on social media. Our YouTube page is kind of blowing up a little bit. We have like 10 views on a video. That's kind of crazy.
Wow.
It's huge.
10.
We're making it big. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.